welcome to On Surviving. My name is Meagan, and I'm a survivor. My partner Noblelee and I are bringing On Surviving to the world because it matters. It matters to me because I want others to recognize the deep strength and rich humanity involved in every step in the process of surviving the tragedies that life brings many of us. I suffered silently and alone for too long, and I want to help others to find hope more quickly and readily and feel and be less alone in the process of surviving. On Surviving matters because you matter, we matter. All right, so I again am Meagan Picard, and I'm actually kicking things off without my dear partner Noblelee. Life happens, and some big stuff is happening on her end, and we are just going to so we're going to continue through. She may or may not be able to join us tonight, and if she is not able to join us tonight, I just want her to know out there that my heart is with her. I love her very much, and can't wait to connect again. If she does get to join us, we will pause and we're going to check in with her, and then we'll continue moving on from there. In the meantime, I will share that I am showing up here just, ready to go, ready to talk about these hard things. Today, we're talking about telling our truths. And as if you read the pieces that, or at least the piece that I wrote, that's something that has been nearly a lifelong struggle for me. And frankly, while I am all 100% on board with sharing my truths, and knowing that shame doesn't get to come with them, unfortunately, sometimes it does creep up, and it's scary to do these things. So we'll just, we'll roll with it, and there may be tears and there may be some stumbling over talking about these things, and that's how it's going to go if that's how it needs to go. I do want to remind everybody that when we talk, when we're in these conversations, we do talk openly about some really hard things, and sometimes those may be triggering. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here in just a second on our reminder about the access to crisis lines. So give me just a second here. Here we go. So hopefully you can see this. We want to remind folks, if you're having any trouble, have trauma coming up, have some anxiety coming up, or really start feeling down or scared, or even having some thoughts that life may not be worth it. I want you to remember that you're not alone. You do matter. And please do reach out for help. There are crisis lines available for free anytime, wherever you are. In the US, it's easy as dialing 988 to get to a trained crisis counselor. And in Mexico, here we have this toll-free number, 800-911-2000. If you're joining us from anywhere else, you can find a whole host of suicide hotlines by country on Wikipedia, and it's a quick and easy Google. So I encourage you to do that. And of course, if you just have somebody there with you to hold your hand or give you an ear, that's wonderful too. So I encourage you to reach out for whatever resources you need. Take a breath, walk away. It's all yours, and you do best, whatever's best for you. So that said, here I am back again. So At this point, we would be moving into talking about what each one of us wrote to help our listeners, to help you all, if you didn't get a chance to read our pieces, to get a little bit of an understanding and a flavor for what we wrote. In my piece in particular, I started off sharing a little writing exercise that I did, trying to show really the pain and angst that went into my little girl mind and body when I was 11 years old, and woke up after being molested by my mother's husband, and my um, that kind of walk of terror really to go tell her, or hopefully to find her. I didn't know she was downstairs, but she was, and to go tell her what happened. And so that in and of itself was extremely difficult. And then things got even more difficult after that, because when I did tell that really, really big truth for such a little girl, things did not go well. I felt like, anyway, I lost my mother. She dropped me off with at my dad's and stepmother's house, which also happened to be where my brother is, who, by the way, is joining us tonight. I'm really excited to bring him on in a little bit. But back to my story. So I basically, she, in her initial response, it felt like she was going to be supportive, but all of a sudden I felt thrown away, and then had a pile on of rejection, sense of rejection, because I flinched when my dad did, bless his heart, really genuinely, tried to console me, and I flinched, and I think that probably hurt his feelings, and so then he went away, and then I felt rejected there. Then there was a bunch of shame, the sense of shame around, kind of quietly getting me to counseling. Back then anyway, it was not something, people didn't talk openly about mental health issues, and they didn't talk openly about going to counseling. And if you went to counseling, there was something wrong with you. And I felt that. I was little, but I felt that really a lot. And then happened to be that one counseling session that I went to, the counselor was quack. And asked me a really horrible question. He asked me if I liked it, and that was, I felt re-violated after that. So this series of adults doing the best they could, maybe except for the counselor, I don't know. But not but really set me off on a course from there that ended up, I think, that foundation, coupled with another piece that I'll talk about in a minute. But that foundation really, what do I want to say? It was then reinforced by the societal attitudes around me, and that basically told me to shut up, suck it up, get through it. And when you are a young person trying to get through huge stuff like that, largely on your own, you are pretty well destined to not for success. And so, and unfortunately also leads to, a whole other set of issues that compound that, and it feels like you're in this kind of spiral downward that you can't, like, this can't quite climb out of, can't make it stop. So, and I talk I list basically in the rest of the piece, a number of those other things that happened, including a serious suicide attempt at 19, and then of course the addiction and my alcoholism that followed, came full blown much further down the road after my daughter died. And because that was, I mean, I just, there's a kind of a longer story about that, but that just caused everything to crash. But it was definitely building before that, given everything that had come before. So I guess the last thing I want to say, well, there's a couple of, never mind. They're not the last thing. There's a couple more things before I bring my brother on to join me. But one of the things I said, I will mention why all of that was particularly hard for me, was that it we, just before that happened, I was living there. That year was the first year living there. And prior, my brother and I had been going back and forth between our parents' houses, and they had, it was time for us to make a decision to actually live primarily one place or the other. And they left that choice up to us. And I was a very sensitive kiddo, and I wanted my brother to choose first, and he chose to go live with our father, and I chose to live with our mother. Not because I didn't want to be with him. In fact, he was, I mean, I adored him so much that I, followed in his footsteps and wanted to teach me everything he knew when we were in early elementary school, and he did. So that's another story, but I didn't want to hurt my mom's feelings, so I went to live with her. And so this kind of, the sense that I couldn't make decisions. I was basically couldn't trust myself to make big decisions. I couldn't, and that when I was in pain, that was a shameful thing, really colored so many steps going forward from there. So that said, the last things that I really wanted to emphasize from what I was saying in my article is that I do talk openly about these things for a number of reasons. And by the way, it is not lost on me that there are people out there that don't want to hear this stuff for a wide variety of reasons. One is like, you're bringing me down, sister. Let's not, I don't want to go there. That's okay. This is not for everybody. It's okay that, some people are just like, still in that mentality. You should suck it up. Don't talk about these things, move on. Or these kinds of things don't belong out, out in polite, it's not a polite thing to talk about this. I mean, that was very present for me growing up. But I know it still exists, and that's okay. I'm going to talk about it anyway. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm just, people don't want to hear it, they can move on. Because I think that there are some really important reasons to talk openly about these things, at least for me. One, they're true. and keeping silent and hiding these things in this kind of false sense of shame that I had on myself, or from trying to protect others through my silence, has caused me a great deal more suffering over life. If it had been safe for me to talk, if there had been openness, and it wasn't, if I wasn't set up to feel ashamed in that process, I know, um, I really believe that I would have taken some different paths in my life. So I also believe that we should talk about these things in order to get to good solutions, to better support systems, and hopefully eventually get to more societal and community acceptance, that there's a better response for people who, when they need to talk about things, especially when it's, in a moment or a place that may not seem quite right, but it needs to happen. So, and in that way, I want to, it's really important to me because I want to create a safer world for telling our truths. And I happen to be in a position to talk openly without fear. I have relative safety because I'm self-employed and I don't have to worry about how things might end up at work. I've also earned a relative degree of respect in my professional world, in particular, in my prior academic world. These are, things that kind of mainstream American culture tend to get some respect. I also happen to have the privileges of being born a white person in a racist society. It's an ugly fact that is true, and is important to recognize that others face many more biases than I do, and much greater oppression based on race, culture, immigration status, income, housing status, other things that put folks at more risk by telling their truth. So I hope that by telling our truths, Noblelee and I, that we are able to hopefully relieve some judgment on others. And I know that we have a long way to go. So the last thing I want to tell about that before I just stop being the only voice here is that is a story actually from my consulting days, because I had interviewed set up to interview a small group of people who had experienced homelessness. And I was working with a group of people in a community that were trying to figure out um, what kinds of policies and actions they should take in that community to address homelessness. And they were trying to get a better understanding of what had worked for people who had been unhoused but had since found housing and were successful in staying there in their lives. So I set up this small group interview, and in the process I said, I am going to personally answer the questions that I ask you. So there's a level playing field and we can all feel comfortable. So this long, like 90-minute interview, we all shared. And I thought, and we all thought, all the participants thought, quite powerful. So I turned it in to get shared with the group that I was working with, and my client asked me to edit out my story because he thought, well, he said anyway, that He thought that committee that I was facilitating would think I was biased and would trust me less, which I was horrified at it. I was horrified that I had to share that back to the people that I interviewed with. And really disappointed because there was an opportunity for that group to be able to hear it without that lens of, because I'd already earned their respect, and I believe they would have been able to hear the stories of the people that the others that I was interviewing more openly and thoughtfully, and less like looking down on them, and be able to kind of see and hear the whole people that I was talking with. And unfortunately, that was taken away. And I don't want to, I don't want that to happen anymore. There's no more bias in me, having had some shared experiences, having um, had mental health issues, and having struggled with drugs and alcohol, having been on teetering on the edge of homelessness myself, because I was so devastated. This was after the loss of my daughter, and actually after I was getting sober, that point came. But that's again another story. But I think it was a shame. I just don't want that to happen again. So the more we can lean into telling our truths, and helping people to hear each other as equals in this world, the better. So that said, I am going to move into the next part of our program here. I'm very, very excited to welcome my brother, Peter Lindstrom, to join me. As I mentioned earlier, Peter, if you want to go ahead and turn on your camera, and excellent, and come off mute. Wonderful. Hey, Peter. Excellent. I'm so happy you're here. Before we get into all of the talking, just we have some serious things to talk about, but let's just check in with you. How are you showing up here today?
Well, it's funny, and I'm going to bring it up anyway later, but I have a wonderful therapist named Tim, who has me do an exercise basically to see the corners of the room. It's a physiological thing that you do when you're mad or you're panicked or you're upset or whatever. And just as human animals, what usually happens when we get into that fight, flight, freeze thing is our window of obviously are set me off quite a bit. So I'm kind of focusing on the edges of the room. But I'm here for you. I'm here for everybody. I'm here because I think it's important that I spent an entirely too long in my life being the confident guy in the room, or somebody that had all the answers, or was the happy person, or the beauty bark guy. And you'll understand what that means more than anyone. But it's important to be vulnerable, and it's important to, there was no way I was going to get the growth I've had in the last couple of years without stepping out beyond the walls of myself. And there's just no way. There's no way. So
Yeah.
That's why it's important.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I really, I honestly, I feel really honored. Uh, I can't think of anybody I love more thoroughly and deeply in this world, other than my husband.
He's okay.
Yeah. But you are capital F family to me,
Mm,
and I really appreciate you being here. So let's go ahead
okay.
and I'd love to invite you to go a little deeper into that and just talk a little bit from your perspective to get us started. What comes to mind for you on this topic?
Mm,
Can you just share a little bit of your perspectives or your experience on the topic, whatever you feel comfortable sharing?
yep.
As always, your story is your story.
Yep.
And of course, if you want to incorporate any reflections or thoughts on the writings that Noblelee and I both did, you're welcome to do that as
Yeah,
well.
sure. Well, so I basically took yours and Noble's writings as kind of the scaffolding for what I was thinking of today. And um, I kind of went through a process of, past, present, future. It's kind of how I do everything. Um, and so when I looked at your two writings, both of them hit me. I was like, oh my gosh. First, I was a part of that story, the first one. And secondly, I was that person. And I could identify with Nobly, like, oh my gosh, the word liar came up so many times in my head as a child, as a young adult, as a 51-year-old, don't tell anyone. Um, that that and I accused myself, I punished myself with it for years. But anyway, if I break it down into the two stories and I look at it, I got a bunch of notes because I'm too dumb to remember everything. Um, I
I love
basically,
notes. Go
I do
with
too.
it.
I do too. So um, I will say, just to start, that situation with our mother's husband, I don't assign stepfather to him because that that that's an earned title, and he didn't earn that. So um, that's the only negative thing I'm going to say about that person. All I can say is that my recollections of those events are very foggy. Um, Mostly because, and I don't want this to come off as something that maybe our folks are going to hear later, but nobody really told me the whole truth.
Mm,
And I think you said it in your opening pretty well that, you know, these are people that tried their best, but they came from a different generation. And we all know our grandparents. I mean, our grandmother suffered mightily with migraines and lupus and all kinds of stuff that she never talked about. Never, not one time. And when you tell the story in our family, it's with a sense of pride. But a couple of weeks ago, I don't know, a couple of months ago, I thought to myself, wait a minute. Nobody gave us the opportunity to give her any sympathy or any empathy for her condition. No one said a word. Why couldn't I have gone over and hugged my grandma and said, gosh, I'm sorry that you're feeling that way. I'm sorry you have to go to bed every night at 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. because you can't stand the light in your face anymore.
yeah.
I know as she got older, it worked itself out, but and she, boy, by the we were kids, she's out swimming in the lake and doing a bunch of stuff. But anyway, so around,
Can I just interrupt you real quick?
yes,
I
please.
just because I love that you shared that about our grandmother because um uh, yes, it would have been wonderful to comfort and be that comfort to her. Also, had I known while she was alive that she was suffering from those things, in particular the migraines. I
Yeah,
have been a migraine sufferer for my entire adult life, and I never knew that there was anyone else in our family until after she died
yeah,
that she suffered from migraines, and that would have helped me. So anyway, keep so it's
yeah,
a two-way help. We could have helped her, she could have helped us.
absolutely. And I understand it. I mean, those were Depression era folks that, I mean, it was all about drive on and get the next thing. And I can't imagine growing, being born in 1920 and then having all that stuff go on, experience what they did. But that still doesn't excuse the fact that, hey man, you can always be better than the person before you. You can always break those chains. You can always do something different. You always can. And as it pertains to the situation when you showed up that day, when mom dropped you off, I talked to my therapist about this last week, because I was like, I knew I was going to come on here and I was going to do this. And I was like, oh man, this is a big sack of hammers here. Oh boy. So we talked it out, and for a long time, we've talked about how I'm really desperate to be included in things. Always want to be included in things. Now, whether that's I'm making the biggest noise in the room so everyone has to look, I'm making the biggest mistake in the room so everyone has to correct it. Whatever it is, I just want to be included. And this was a perfect situation where I have a very, very strong recollection of that day. You, mom, Patty, and dad by mom's car, and me by myself. It left me with a sense of helplessness that, when we were kids, we went to this little, humble little South Tacoma elementary school. And, if anybody got out of line, I don't know. I just like to, smack them in the face if they're mistreating you. I always wanted to defend you or do whatever I could. And it was one of those moments in my life that was like, man, if you guys would have just included me, if you just would have said the truth, if you just would have laid it out there, um, and to be honest, you and I haven't even talked about it that much ever. Um, I can make up all kinds of stories in my head, which I don't want to do at all. But reading your piece was incredibly valuable to me, because I was like, oh, okay, all right. At least I have a framework, something to work off of. I know that house. So it was really, you'd sent me a message and said, oh, it might be a little bit hard for you to read. And yeah, it was pretty devastating, but I kind of try to keep everything now in, I don't know. I try to keep things in mind that, yeah, it's something tough, but I think there's a reward. There's something that can come out of it. It's just, I don't know. I always think of the 180 degrees behind me. If I'm staring at the dragon, there's got to be an exit behind me that's better than this thing. So, I don't know. I appreciated it that you even wrote it down, that you shared it with people and with me, because we've never really talked about it very much. And it was validating. I was like, oh, and I actually said to my therapist, I said, I was actually, and he's like, because we were always fighting for a word. I am really, really, I don't know. How do I put this? I always want the precise word for the, it was like, he's like, included? No, that's not it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
Sorry.
good.
Yeah.
So I was like, I couldn't get it. It's like, is it included? No. Is it partisan? No, I couldn't think of it. And a light bulb went off, and I said, I feel more familyed now
Oh, wow.
than I've ever been in my life.
Huh.
And me, I've got this goofy poetic way of putting everything. It's just the way the way I am. But in that moment, I went, oh yeah, okay. So telling something and speaking the truth and looking down that dark hallway, it did the exact opposite of making me sad or tearing my guts out or, oh, all that awful stuff. I mean, that's there too, but it's not going to kill me.
Right.
But the other side of it is, oh, well, we're just together. we both know the same thing. We're just
Mm-hmm.
a part of this together. Okay, we're just family. It's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love
yeah,
that.
that's how it kind of struck me. And because of lessons that I think I learned in my young life, like, hey, we're just going to avoid it. We're just going to marshal on. We're just going to push away. We're going to, what's for dinner? You know, church is on Wednesday. We got things to do, right? Get your
Mm.
grades up, do your thing, blah, blah, blah. That didn't go so hot, but um, all the time anyway. I tended to learn the lesson, hey, wait a minute, I can just avoid it for now. I can just put it away.
Mm.
I can just act like it's not there. And, I had my own run-ins with the guy. They weren't sexual of nature, they were violent in nature. And I don't know, they weren't fun at all, but that's all in the past. So I don't really feel like dealing with or talking about it too much, but um, I know I'm wandering. Oh, anyway, basically I learned a lesson, or the lesson that was taught to me when I was a child was avoid it, move on. And lying to me is a form of avoidance. It's get you to the next thing. It's get me out of this trouble for a little bit. It's make somebody like me because I don't feel liked, or whatever it is. Lying is a type of avoidance. It's just borrowed time until the truth finally comes out. It's always the same way. And I stood on that, and I tried that technique, if you want to call it that, for decades.
Yeah.
Um, and the one thing that I finally learned was the worst person I could possibly lie to was myself. And I started doing that. Um, Now, I mean, I do have a couple of beers after work, but it's not that big of a deal. I mean, I just have a little bump of cocaine on the weekends.
Mhm.
It's just during a party. I mean,
Mhm.
it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. I'm just doing a little partying with my friends, and oh, that looks cool. Um, and that girl, she wasn't that hurt by the fact that I never called her back. I mean, just the stories, the lies I told myself that then kind of emanated out into the world,
Mhm.
um, was just borrowed time. So a couple years ago, I finally got to the point, September 12th of all things on 2019. It was a Sunday. I was driving home from our place up in the mountains, and I had gotten absolutely annihilated drunk that weekend. I mean, just plastered.
Mm.
Don't really remember what I did. Don't remember if I drove. I mean, I kind of do, but I kind of don't. But I was driving home, and this feel, and I've struggled with substance abuse for a long time. I mean, it's just, in and out of it. Some things I've managed to put away, some things like the booze, it's just so prevalent and so easy. It was just always there. Um, anyway, I was driving home that morning, and this sense of doom that I had, I mean, I, doom, it's the only word I could think of. I mean, just everything was going to end. And then a little light up went off in the back of my head, or a little voice, and it said, you don't have to do this anymore.
Mm.
You just don't.
Mm.
And I thought, okay. So that's my sober day. And that's the last time I ever put booze to my lips. And that's the last time I'm ever going to do it. Now, I know there's a lifetime of vigilance. There's all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff. We get all that.
Mhm.
Um, I even sent you that little speech that Craig Ferguson does. It's my kind of my reminder when I'm either having a bad day or a really good day.
Yeah.
Um, on both ends of it, it's kind of a hey bucko, just kind of keep it in mind. Um, but it helps.
Yeah. Hey, will you
And then
tell anybody who's listening how to what that was called, or how
mm,
they might find, because I thought it was really incredible as well, and grounding. Yeah.
yeah, what's it called? it was on President's Day, because he says it in the beginning. I watched it so many times. What does it say? If somebody just searches Craig Ferguson Britney Spears monologue, because it
Excellent.
was when Britney Spears was having some problems and
Yeah.
she was having a bit of a break and things were going a little bit sideways for her, poor
Mhm,
lady.
mhm.
And he just kind of got to a crossroads where he was like, I don't feel good making fun of these people.
Yeah.
Like, she clearly needs help, and I'm not helping.
Yeah.
And so he decided that day that he's like, "Nah, I'm not making any more jokes about this."
Mhm,
And then he told his story,
mhm.
which, if you're in any of those rooms, you will recognize what he's doing is he's 12-stepping everybody that's watching.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
He does it so effortlessly that you're like, you don't even realize what he's doing until he says, you know, and you can find them. They're very easy to find. They're very near the front of the phone book. And then he just raises his eyebrows, and he says, good luck. And that's the end of the monologue. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome.
that Britney Spears or Craig Ferguson Britney Spears monologue, it's something to look out for. I watch it all the time. So
Yeah. Yeah. I was really grateful you shared it with me for sure. It was a good one. So sorry for interrupting, please.
no, it's all right.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been talking for a month. Um,
It
but
can feel like that on here.
yeah, exactly. Where am I? Um, yeah, and then so 2019 was a good time to like, all right, yeah, you can't do that anymore. I don't want to. And a couple years before that, I had made a promise to myself, or about a year ago before that, 2018, um, got some personal stuff that, yeah, I'm going to keep to myself, just for my family's sake. Um, but I had made some fairly unwise choices, and I had made a decision like, hey, that's the end of that. So it was almost like a knock this domino over, then this one, and this one, and this one, and
Mhm.
this one. And it wasn't an all overnight, you know,
Sure.
like go to rehab and then, or whatever. It was,
Yeah. Or flip a
um,
switch and all of a sudden everything's all fixed, right?
right. Well,
Yeah.
some people's story is maybe they land in jail and then all of a sudden they're like, holy crap, I got to get this stuff, you
Mhm.
know, in order. No,
Sure.
for me, it was just incremental. It was like, ooh, I don't like how I'm treating this person.
Mhm.
I should stop doing that, or whatever it was. So I'd been kind of making incremental choices. And then in May of 2020, the last kind of straw fell for me. I don't know, for years, I've been kind of trying to, I don't know, talk to somebody. I'd seen a couple of counselors or a therapist here and there, only a couple of times. By the way, the first therapist I ever saw when I was a kid, fell asleep,
Oh,
in the middle of my session.
oh my, I did not know that. And by the
Yeah,
way, can I just tell you, I didn't know you went to see one.
yeah, yeah. It
This is
sucked.
this is how little these things
We're talked
are
about. Yeah,
we're talked about.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So, and this isn't to barbecue my parents at all.
No.
Yeah. So, and the one thing that I can say is that we've had our ups and downs, but especially our parents have never gone anywhere.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
um, and
They,
I won't compromise on that.
yeah,
So,
they've never gone anywhere. And I just want to add a little thing. You know, when I was in my 20s and I was like really gut wrenching wrestling with a lot of this stuff, I was in therapy and I with the support of a counselor reached out and talked to them about what I went through and you know and their part in that and they were amazing and
good.
they heard me and I we have a really rich relationship now, I think,
Hmm.
because of that. I mean, I'm not here to skewer anybody because of mistakes we make. We are human beings, we make mistakes. I had made so
Oh.
many mistakes, I would be like beyond Swiss cheese here. I'd be like that one of those pieces of Swiss cheese that's like falling apart because there's so many, skewers gone through me. So yeah, it's not about that at all. It's about, you know, honestly, we get better when we tell our truths. We get better when we're
Mhm.
able to hear and say, oh shit, I love you and I don't want to hurt you and I don't want to hurt you anymore. And I might hurt
Right.
you again, but we're in this together. So
Right.
um and
Well,
frankly, even, and can I just say, even our birth mother and her husband, they have a whole history of things that went
mm,
before them too. And
yeah.
and whatever it is in their lives, I just can't have them hurt me anymore.
Yeah.
And it's I'm not sitting here to skewer them either, frankly. It's just their lives and stories are theirs and mine is mine.
Yep.
And yeah, there you go.
I got too many important things in my life to focus on the people that I don't know. I only have so much bandwidth. I can't do
Right,
anything more with it than that.
right.
But I mean, when
Well,
you talk about truths, basically in like 2020, I was, I don't know. I've had some. Hey, there she is.
yeah.
So
So
let
should
me.
we go ahead? Keep
Well, let
going.
me let me tell you this real quick because
Yeah.
in 2020, I finally decided that I was going to see a therapist,
Yeah.
and I didn't have, I was like, man, the therapy is so expensive. But I went through this place called Therapy Associates of Tacoma. It's not I don't know these people, whatever, but they gave me some great low cost, super low cost, actually, therapy with the guy, and he was a master's student at the time. He's since graduated, and now I'm anyway. So for the last little bit, I called him up, and actually, when I typed out my little, why do you want to talk to us thing,
Yeah.
the one thing I told him was, the very last thing I told him was, I am ready. And
Mm.
so since then, I've been staring down dark hallways and riding dragons and, you know, picking up old issues and setting them down again.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
anyway,
Mm. All right. I am so I actually the timing is good. I was just sending a chat to Noblelee saying, so glad you're here. And so glad that you got to share that story. And I want to talk more
yep.
about all of that and hear more about um actually I have a couple of other follow-up questions. And I think what we'll do is we'll wrap that into our group conversation. So Nobly,
Hi.
as I said in the opening, I said you were late because you're dealing with a major family issue. and
Yeah.
and I said we're going to pause and we're going to connect with you and see where you are, because this is the real stuff. And I didn't give any specifics, so it's up to you to share with us how you're showing up and whatever you may wish to say from here. And let me just say I love you so much.
I love you too. Um, I have a nephew with substantial mental health that hasn't been taken care of, and I think he's a paranoid schizophrenic. He's a young man. He's 18, and he locked himself in the bathroom, and he hasn't eaten in days, and he's in a blank underneath a blanket in the bathtub, just locked the door and just hiding. And I didn't know what to do, so I kicked the door down, and it took a really long time to get him out of the bathroom. He just had a blank look, so I finally got him to the emergency room to get him some mental health treatment. And because of my job, I knew what to say, but it was really hard saying when it was family, just doing it with family. And so he's just getting admitted now to try to get him some help. He's had problems with medication as a child, so he's kind of against it, but he really needs a lot of help, a lot.
Yeah.
So it was it's just really hard. He's just that sweet boy that I remember,
I know it.
and knowing the words to say in the middle of trauma like that was very difficult because it's real touchy. You got to make sure you say the right thing,
Yeah.
and I did. I was the only one that could get him out and get him into the car. So,
I'm glad you were there.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I am shook up, but I really wanted to be here and try to disassociate for a minute because I know that he's safe, you know.
Yeah.
And so again, I apologize.
Oh, please don't.
I
Please.
know, but
I
you know
know
how I
you.
am.
I know how you are. And what I want to ask you right now is how we can support you best right now.
um I just I just need to just take a deep breath for a minute. Like I've learned to try to take care of myself in the process. So
Okay. Okay.
it's gonna be all right. He's gonna get help.
Okay.
It's just I have to advocate, and make sure that he gets the right help because sometimes it's very hard to get the right
Yeah.
combination of medication.
And
So
do you plan to go?
Noblelee,
Go ahead.
yeah,
can I say something? It's life. I don't know. It's wild how things kind of lock together. I'm sitting at my wife's desk right now, and you can probably see our pictures behind us and the boys and
yeah,
everything. She is a very prepared person, and I don't know for a living, but she's been a psych nurse for 29 years.
okay,
And it's wild to hear you say this because she has all these sticky notes all over the place, crisis plans, all this stuff. And I guess I say that to say, if you if you need anything from us, let me know because Karen can, I don't know. She's been doing this a very long time. So
Oh,
if you need a
I
hand with anything or you need I don't know, any advice, whatever. I don't know much. I just play a doctor on TV. So, but
right.
she on the other hand knows what she's doing. So
Karen
And I
is
really
incredible. Oh, go ahead, Nobly.
and I really do appreciate that, and I will just ask for some advice because as somebody that knows where to start, I don't know where to start other than
yeah,
getting them immediate like crisis help. But
yep,
where do we
yep,
go from here?
yep,
So thank you for that. We'll get
sure,
together and
yeah,
get some information from you.
The
sure,
universe is
Thank you.
incredible. I am not sure I would have. I adore Karen, and she is amazing.
yep,
And I'm not sure I would have thought to ask her advice. The universe is amazing. I
It
am
is.
very sorry that this happened, and I am really glad my brother was here to hear it.
Me too.
mm-hmm,
That it
yep,
did.
Me too.
yep.
So, can I introduce the two of you a little bit? This is
Yeah,
By
Nobly.
the way,
This is my
definitely.
hi.
Hi,
brother.
Pete.
You know,
Hi.
I'm probably because I am the person that I am. Like as we talk further, I've already given you a nickname in my head. So
Do I
I'm more,
want to know it?
yeah, I'm already calling you Sniffles.
I am Sniffles, Snuffleupagus at its finest.
Peace and love. Peace and love. But
Thank you. I accept.
I'm
and
trying
on
for a
a,
little levity here.
well, and laughter is the second medicine. So,
Amen.
and a
Yeah.
lot. I was actually going to go there too, Nobly. That I was going to tell you that we were prepared to carry this, whether you showed up or not, and Peter was going to stand in for the dad joke.
Okay.
So
Nice. Nice. He still can.
well, maybe we'll check in when we get there and see if you feel like sharing, if you're in a place you want to share yours, and maybe you both do, or maybe you can pass the baton.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Oh, all right. And yeah. So do you want me to kind of catch you up on where we
Yeah.
began? Okay.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah. So I did our opening not as good as you with you.
Oh boy.
Because it's never as good without you. But but I did go ahead and share my um kind of my overview of my piece, and went in and kind of talked about the things that were important to me about talking about telling our truths, period. And
Yeah.
I want to say that one highlight for me, and listening to my brother, listening to Peter respond to me, and talking about his process, was him talking about how little he knew about what happened with me when I was a kid. And I didn't, and how that, um, how he felt alienated, separated, and how much he felt connected, and familied. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Familied, by having been able to read my story. And I had no talk, because he talked about going to therapy, counseling as a kid, and I didn't even know he went. Of course, my brain may be mushy, and maybe I knew, and I don't remember, but I'm
Right.
pretty sure I just didn't know.
Yeah.
So we were talking about that we're all in the same, few years of age.
Yeah.
Pete and I are close in age, and you and I are right about the same age. So Noblelee. So we were talking about that growing up, when a lot, I think, in that kind of societal backdrop, where it was just, it wasn't just our parents, it was everybody. I mean, really, it just wasn't
Yeah.
okay to talk about these
Right.
things, and shameful. And then Pete was also saying how much he relates to you, and your story in particular, about the lying piece. So do you feel like you're in a
Yeah.
place where, or Pete, do you want to say anything else about that to catch her up? And
Yeah, well, now that you can hear it, Nobly, I'm really glad that you wrote down what you did, because, and I talked to Meagan about, oh well, I was a part of that, her writing. I mean, I was there, so to
Right.
speak. But moving forward through my life, what you wrote down was like, well, that's how I operated my life. That was a lesson I learned, which was, don't deal with anything, avoid the truth, avoid, if you could be the cooler person, or you could be whatever you want to be, just do that.
Yeah.
Be okay when you're not okay. Smile when you don't feel like it. All that stuff. So I don't know. I was like, holy crap, this is perfect. I mean, and for years, I can't remember who says it, but somebody says, human beings are the only animals in the animal kingdom that punishes themselves more than once for a mistake. So,
Yeah.
so, I mean, we just sit and persecute ourselves. We call ourselves names. We do all this junk to ourselves, like over and over again. I'm a liar. I'm a this. I'm a that. And I did that for years. And I wasn't honest with myself. I wasn't honest with other people. And finally, I just had a breaking point, and I was like, this is basically a lie. Is what I was saying earlier, was a lie is just borrowed time. You can either deal with it now, or you can deal with it down the road. And the only problem with dealing with it down the road is that it's corroded and it's twisted, and you don't remember the real story, and you've hurt somebody's feelings or your own. So I don't know. I've just learned that you sitting there and being upset teaches me too something that I was so terrified of, which was being vulnerable in front of people was terrifying. unless I kind of made it into a performance, unless it was something bigger than me, unless it was kind of to give me some kind of, I don't know, oh, you're so emotional. And anyway, I'm wandering. But the point is that I finally got to the point where I had to just kind of stop lying to myself and get real with a whole bunch of stuff. And when I finally did decide to go get a therapist, um, I don't know, all this stuff kind of started to crash into itself. And I was like, holy crap, I'm not that person anymore. That stuff, all that stuff's in the past. And even when you're upset, like I've just learned that it, yeah, okay, maybe you are scared, maybe you are upset, maybe you are whatever, but it's not going to last forever.
Right.
It's what's happening right now. Yep, that's what it is. But that doesn't mean it's going to be that way for the next 15 years of your life. It's just a feeling, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, I'm
I
not
do.
minimizing or anything. I'm just saying
No.
it is what it is. And then we move on from there. But man, I told Meagan a story a while back that I have this, like, I do this exercise with my therapist where I kind of imagine an issue in my head, whether that's me saying, oh, I remember that time I was, I don't know, dishonest, or I was a bad person to, I don't know, I was unfaithful, or whatever it was. I stole from somebody, or I did whatever. I've got that thing in my head, and it's usually got a shape. And I'm such a visual person that I think of things in shapes and colors. I used to think, oh boy, that is the weirdest woo-woo crap I've ever heard. But actually, once I kind of relax and kind of give into it, right, I'm like, oh yeah, this is exactly the way I do things. My son's exactly the same way, by the way. So anyway, when I think of this stuff, the issue, whatever it is, regret or sadness or whatever it is over this issue, it always has a form. It always has a shape. And it always has, like, it's always usually really heavy or sharp or unapproachable or, almost invisible. You know what I mean? It's hard to pick up or whatever. So what I do is I visualize myself picking this thing up, thinking about it, and then realize almost every single one of these can't hurt me anymore.
Yeah.
And then he has me set them down, thank it for the lesson it gave me, and then I let it go. Now,
That's good.
that sounds wonderful and easy, and oh yeah, that's great. But that's 50 minutes of me crying and screaming and doing a bunch of other stuff too. So that's, it gets pretty ugly. But it's all very necessary. But
what you're doing is you're experiencing the pain in a way that's real and true, and it's necessary in
yep,
order to heal, to
yep,
feel
Yeah,
that. It's necessary.
it
Which is
is.
part of why it's so important for us to be able to tell our truths, right? And,
yep.
and like
Yeah.
you said, Pete, even to ourselves first, for
Especially to
sure,
ourselves.
especially to ourselves. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. So where are you right now, Noblelee? You
Um,
feel
yeah, I feel like I can talk about mine a bit. I
great.
mean, if you're
Yeah,
ready for that.
yeah. I would love. Yeah, yeah.
um, so my piece is about several childhood instances where telling my truth was horrifying, and just I'm Native American, and it is absolutely, you're just not allowed to talk about anything really to anybody. You're not. It's like written in stone. You don't. And that's why when these traumatic events happened in my life, like my brother being kidnapped and murdered and a sexual assault and all of that stuff, I didn't get any kind of counseling for it. And the one time I did, it was a huge breach of confidentiality, and it was really bad. But it's really difficult to be a tiny little girl and to feel all these ways. Like I heard things when I was 4 years old when it happened, and I heard things like, I don't know if I heard them, like, or I felt them or what, but it was like my parents had a perfect son and a perfect daughter, and their business and buying a home and all that, everything was great, and I was completely unplanned. And I don't feel like I was completely wanted to begin with, and then all this happened. So I was the lost child. I was there. You can see me, but I wasn't there. And I really didn't tell anybody anything about me much. My teachers, all my report cards say that I'm slow to get to know, because I didn't have, I couldn't tell anybody, how I felt. And so then I just lied. I just lied because I was scared. And I saw my sisters just running around like being normal and being able to have conversations with my parents, and that was really foreign to me. Like I would talk to objects outside, you know, and even then I just think I was making noise. I don't feel like I was getting anything out. Um, but then when big things happen, like I got a minor in possession or in trouble for fighting, or um, I had a suicide attempt when I was a teenager, preteen, and then it was like, oh well, why didn't you tell us? What do you mean? What's going on? And it's like, first of all, you should have fucking looked at me and known.
Yeah.
Second of all, I'm horrified to tell you anything because it's been branded generational that you don't talk to anybody, and so then I
Well,
don't
and
know.
didn't you say that someone in your family, I want to say it was your father, was upset with you for going to counseling?
Very upset.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I had started to talk, started to, get something out. And this was a reservation with 1,110 people. Everybody went back generations. And my dad was, a well-known, well-liked man in the community. And for whatever reason, she felt the need to tell my dad everything I said. And he was like, get out of my face. You disgust me, like, you little, whatever. And so then that just was like, yeah, I ain't telling nobody shit. And then I became a puppet on a string. You like red? Guess what? My favorite color is red. And doing that as a defense mechanism my whole life. Like when I got clean and sober, I had no idea who I was, what to do with all these, feelings. And it's been really, it's been hard to dig down in there and start to stir all that stuff back up. But also very necessary because it has to come out.
Yeah.
It has to come out. I have to stop, stop that kind of trauma. And um, I just, I'm just wondering how, like what Peter was saying, like I talked horrible to myself, horrible, the things I said to myself, because I wasn't telling anybody, nobody was really acknowledging me. So everything, all those feelings, I told them to myself.
Sure.
And I'm just wondering what kind of world it would be, my world and everybody's world, if we turned that shit into positive affirmations. That was so foreign to me. What do you mean, positive affirmation? Can you please look that up for me? I need a definition, because that stuff is buried deep. And that not being able to tell my truth has carried me 48 years.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't, if I was sick, I would call in and it would be this big old dramatic, way outlandish story when I should have just said, hey, I'm sick.
Right.
But for whatever reason, it was just something that I did.
You had to
And
make it something somehow acceptable to somebody else, maybe.
What was that?
Was it, I was curious if it's like you felt like you had to make it acceptable to somebody else.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. And then there was the whole thing like anytime we left our property, it was like you act like a little girl, you look like a little girl, you act proper, you look proper, you talk proper, you are very, you're surface, but you're not telling, you're not allowed to say anything besides hi and look cute. Look, I'm so cute. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so then it was like, I didn't feel like I fit that mold either. Like I didn't look like my sisters. I didn't act like my sisters. I didn't like what they liked. I talked to trees, you know what I mean? And I love me a tree.
They're really nice.
But and there was a crooked one. It was super weird and crooked and not like everybody else. Imagine that. So I sought that guy out. But what I long to is to live in a nation that allows telling your truth to be accepted and welcomed, you know. Um, and I would like to be the type of person to do that. Look at my nephew. His truth about what was going on in his mind. He was so afraid to say anything. And so here we are. He cut himself and he tried to stab himself in the heart. Because he was afraid to tell his truth. It shouldn't be like that. And he slipped through the cracks. He did. And it's just it's horrible. Like I tell the truth now. I had to do the work and I'll cry and I'll be snotty and I'll do what I have to do because it's me,
Yeah.
this is life, and life sometimes is not pretty. And so we just have to be able to get it out and be kind. Be kind. And if somebody wants to talk to you and tell you something, listen, just take a minute, just because you might be the only person, for whatever reason, they sought you out to try to tell their truth.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So I just I'm not gonna take the guilt of you should have known. I'm not gonna do that. But for whatever reason, he felt most comfortable with me, and I just there just has to be a way. There has to be. I mean, it's gonna start one person at a time.
That's right.
Just listening, and I don't know. I don't even know.
Well, it seems to me that Noblelee, you were his crooked tree today.
I
That he
was.
that got to. I mean, he couldn't say it out loud. He said it the way that he could have, the only way he could have. So,
Yeah.
maybe sometimes a cry isn't, I don't know, it's not perfect. Say, excuse me, Noblelee, I have something to get off my chest. Would you please sit down? That's typically not the way it goes. I mean, we all know that.
Right.
I mean, I've done that a million times. I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I've
I
been
do know.
I've been the golden boy and you should be the captain of this and the guy with the answers. And it's like, I just feel like driving this car off a cliff right now and things kind of suck. And I hate all of you and I hate me. And,
Yes.
Yes.
And Nobly, you know what I know, which is little, but what I know is you have continued to show up for him. You have said over and over, I love you exactly as you are.
Yeah.
And for some reason that he was responsive to you, is because you have been that example of what we are hoping more people will be in the world for him,
Yeah.
for others. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Absolutely. And we know, and let me say, here's a good example. You have continued to show up, and you have done that way, and still we're dealing with this. You and your family are dealing with this really hard, traumatic situation right now. Sometimes we can't prevent that from happening,
Yeah.
and we, hard as we try, sometimes that, as Peter said, sometimes the cry is that big,
Yeah.
you're continuing to follow through and continue to be there. I mean, the wonderful thing is when people stick with you, and continue to show up. Um,
Yeah.
I know in my own suicide attempt, I mean, we've talked about, like, both of us wrote about, like, the shame we felt
Yeah.
about our decisions, but not just our decisions, but things that happened to us that were beyond our control because of how others treated us, and how others responded to those situations. And I know that when I was um, coming out of the hospital after my 72-hour hold, um, that which was also, was a pretty scary situation, that I felt, a great deal of shame about that. And I tell you what, I would have loved it if I had a Noblelee there, who was going to say, I love you exactly as you are. As you are, and I'm going to say that to you as many times as you need to hear it, and we're gonna walk forward together.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
And that's what it takes. Like, it just takes consistency, even if we've talked about this before, even if you don't get anything on the other end,
that's right.
just keep doing it. And I just kept saying that you're smart, you're worth it, you're capable. People love you. We need you in this. We need you, and just everything positive, for him, and just know that you're protected, and the voices and the things that you're seeing, that's not right, that's not true,
Right.
you know but it's scary when you have a mind that like there's so much in there. Like, can I sit down and say to you that, I used to stab myself with a pencil in the stomach with a sharpened pencil just to feel something, like that I tried to kill myself, and that I felt, unloved, and all that stuff. It sounds unacceptable, I think, to people in general. And you're supposed to paint this picture on TikTok or, wherever you are, about, how you're supposed to be. People are supposed to be a certain way. And then if you're not that way in school, then you start getting bullied.
Yeah.
And then it just, it goes downhill from there. Unfortunately, Nick has substantial mental health on both paternal and maternal
Mm,
side, that it should have been diagnosed and treated, a long time ago, really, honestly.
right. Right.
Um,
Right.
but even in, I don't know, I'm just sad. I'm
Yeah.
sad. I don't want people to have to hold on to stuff for years, because it hurts.
Yep. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So, can I ask? Um, uh, I want to ask if you want to stay here and talk about, his situation more. So I'm going to give these options. There are two in
Sure.
my mind. There's that one, and the other is, we could talk about, what actually would help, what would help to tell some of these truths, especially the ones that, like you're saying, that are, seem like extra horrifying, like
Yeah.
I have like, for instance, I will say right here, I have never told anyone about my own self-harm for the same reasons. Is that well, it's not to feel, for in my case it wasn't to feel something, it was to feel something different.
Yeah.
um and it was to feel something different that I could control. um and I'm, thank God, I'm not in that place now, but it's
Right.
all of those kind of truths that if we can talk about them and process them, that we can get to heal. But there's got to be a space that is safer for us to do. Anyway, so I'm going too far down that road. I don't mean to go to the choice is yours. um which way you want.
Yeah, I think if we kind of talk about, what would help, what could what could help, I don't know the benefits of doing telling the truth and get some of that off your chest, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, what's helpful in telling our truth. I
Hmm.
think if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. I have a couple. I've written down a couple of notes on that for mine. But does
Okay.
either of you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Uh, Either one of you can.
Well, I'll go ahead and get the ball rolling.
Okay.
Then um, I'll start with a simple one. Is when the person I'm talking to is willing to be uncomfortable with me for a minute, and also willing to work, stick with it long enough to be able to push past that discomfort. Because in my experience, when that's happened, it honestly doesn't last for all that long. I mean, I have a really simple example.
Okay.
When I'm in, say, I'm out at a conference, I'm doing networking things, and I'm sitting there, and um, somebody asks me if I have kids, and I say yes, and they say, "Oh, how old?" And I say, I have a daughter, and she died when she was 11." Um, and there is always, and the best of the situations are when people go, "Whew, wow, that is difficult," and but then also, and like, check in about it, and I tell them where I am with it, which these days is in a well, that's a whole different story. Um, but for
Yeah.
me, it's important that I tell that truth, because I never want to deny my daughter. She is my daughter. I am a mother, and it's just in a
Yes, you
different
are.
form. And so when people are go ahead and be uncomfortable, and then and talk and engage me, and we move past it, that is a very, very helpful thing. So
Yes. Yeah.
and I guess part of that is actually related to the second note, so I'm just going to incorporate that, which is when people actually seek understanding, right? So in that case, oftentimes what it looks like for somebody to be uncomfortable is also to be able to be willing to ask whatever questions are
Yeah.
popping up for them. And I don't think they have to be perfect. I'm not a person that says your response has to be exactly right. Right. I'm not asking people to be trained professionals. And frankly, by the way, trained professionals don't get it exactly right either.
Right.
So, because guess what? We are all unique, and we all respond to different things in different ways, because we have all sorts of stuff that's built up there. And so what's important, I think, is to just stick with it and be together to seek that understanding without judgment. So that's something that it helps me to be able to tell my truth. Granted, it's a gamble, and I don't know if everybody do that exactly, but it sure helps me as a whole human being to come through the other side of that when I've had that experience. Other thoughts about what's helpful and supports us in telling our truths?
I've called crisis lines, and I've gone into, mental health crisis centers, and, gone to the hospital in the past for, things that were going on. And it's like, you have to go through 50 million questions. Like, what was your grandmother's 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 name? What color was their hair? Did they have a dog? It's like, I kind of need to, move past all of this and get on with it. So it would be helpful if that all that jazz was not happening like right then and there when you're in crisis. Like, can we do this a little later? Do we really need to do all that? Because for me, I was just like super frustrated and didn't want to really tell any truth. So I just kind of whatever, just placated them and didn't feel like they were a good resource. Now, I'm not saying that that's always true in every case. They are helpful, but it would have to go through all of that. And that same when you're trying to talk to somebody, like I just need you to be kind of like an avid listener and kind of don't make it all about you right now, and just kind of let me, because it's hard. It's hard to tell your truth, especially when you have a lot going on. And that, for me, that's helpful. And then confidentiality, like, don't tell anybody. If you tell anybody any part of that and I find out, I'm done. Not only do I don't want to talk to you, but now I don't want to talk to the person you told, and I don't want to really talk to anybody, because the stuff I'm trying to tell you is my truth. As painful as they are, or as happy as they are, um, it's my stuff. And I just don't tell anybody, keep it to yourself. And it just, I don't know, just be supportive and engage, like you said, engage, you know. Um, I don't know.
My brother is
That
a master of that, by the way. I like even better than me, frankly, about like keeping confidences. I am just thinking about like within the family, like, there'll be
yeah.
people wanting to, check in and talk, thinking like it's okay to share other stories within the family, right? And
Right.
Peter's like, nope. You're
Yeah,
gonna go have to ask so and
I'm,
so.
I'm, I'm, uh, I'm allergic to gossip of any kind. And if you want to
Yeah.
know, I've had people say, "Hey, what's going on with person X?" And I go, "I don't know. You're just going to have to go talk to them. Yeah, I don't, do you know?" And I can't lie to them. So I will say, "Yeah, I do." But that's not my story to tell. But I wrote down a couple of things just thinking about it. I wasn't really prepared for it, but when you tell, I wasn't going to tell my truth until I was ready. I just wasn't. There was a time, there was a break for me personally. That's just who I was. I had to get to a point where I went, enough of this. And it's killing me. It's killing my relationships. It's, you know, it- and nowadays, a lot of times I just, on the receiving end of that, I'm not a very good listening tree myself. I'm not. I want to fix your problem. I want to, hey, wait a minute. I got this PowerPoint and we can do this, and I got some numbers for you. And it's really hard for me to just sit and listen and go, zip it together. I mean, I can and I will, but I always have to tell myself, hey, Pete, you're not here to, reinvent the wheel. Just open your stupid ears and just listen for a little bit. Let them get it out. Let them go. And in a minute, if they do say, and that's where I usually have to sit back and go, I have to tell myself, wait for them to ask you, wait for them to ask you, wait for them to ask you. And sometimes they don't. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, sometimes people just want to get it off their chest, and I have to do it the same way too. Like sometimes I just want to blow it out. I want to get it out of there, and whatever it is, and I don't really need you to fix me. I don't need all that. I just want to be told without being told that you're just going to be here.
Yeah.
That it's acceptable, that it's cool. Some of the stuff that comes out of my mouth, I'm like, you're probably going to hate me for the rest of my life if I say this to you. And more often than not, now that I'm like, okay, here goes, and I say it, most of the time people go, I prove to myself, oh, the people that really care, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
They're absolutely not going anywhere. So
Yeah. That was a really hard lesson for me. I mean, it's part of the reason I didn't tell it, right? Because when I told my truth, people who mattered most did go away.
yeah.
But but then I come now and I'm like, well, I have this host of other people who really do matter and are most definitely not going anywhere. And they matter to me and I matter to them. And I know that. So super get that. I wanted to add in one other thing too, because I was listening actually to both of you. I was thinking about being in AA rooms, um, and what that environment is like, and how before I knew that, I had all these ideas of what kind of awful place it was going to be and how shameful it was going to be there. And I don't know, I had these ideas, maybe from movings, I don't know. But I found space to talk, space to listen, no judgment, just this, yeah, just this awesome place to be exactly who you are, and this kind of thread of true humanity that just lifted out of the air when I was there. And I have never felt so human and validated as a human being, and a survivor, frankly, as I have in those rooms. So could we just create like that space somehow over and over again?
I would love that, and I would be there because I am the one that is super raw in the AA meetings. And I mean, and I've had so many people say, man, your share was like, it touched me in one way or another, because they were able to hear, hey, here's this chick, my peer. She was an addict alcoholic, and she's saying what's up.
Right.
And I can relate to that, but I could never say that. But maybe just maybe I can pull her to the side and we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
And that has happened. And so I would love to partake in the mental health rooms where you can just be you. That would be so amazing.
Right. And I know not every environment is a support group, but there's something about the essence of that.
Yeah.
Right? The essence of the, give space when space is needed. Be non-judgmental, honor the courage it takes to go through those kinds of things. I'm glancing at the time and knowing that we're running a little bit longer, but we're also not on a schedule. And I was hoping we could also touch on what gets in the way and what might make things, and this kind of dream world question I had. So maybe 15-ish more minutes. Are you both okay to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. I'm fine.
Cool. So I want to go ahead and just ask that also let's move on to this question, that what gets in the way or what makes it difficult. So the converse of that. And of course, if you want to still pepper any lingering thoughts from the last question, please feel free to do that too. Hey, by the way, your roommate is supposed to do something funny when they walk by.
I know. I forgot to tell her. I forgot to tell her. I think we'll make some signs for the next, or I can just clean my bedroom. That's always something.
I'm just teasing.
I know. I meant to have my room ready, but it just didn't go down like that.
Oh, please, honey, we're good. So, what makes it difficult? What gets in the way?
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, we've definitely touched on I think the theme about this kind of societal sense that it's not okay has been a big problem. That's kind of sense of shame, whether it's coming from like in close within whatever the group of people that are involved, and beyond that kind of societal thing. And I actually seems like that's getting better, but I know, but it still shows up. So that's one of the things, hoping to continue to push away. I have some other things, but go ahead on what you were going to say, Noblelee.
For me, I feel like it's just a busy world, and if I feel like I'm taking your time up because you're, tapping your watch and you're on your phone and you're not, it's just gonna make me shut down, so that's something that is a barrier. I'm gonna shut down. I'm not gonna be able to talk to you about that. And I just think taking the time to know the situation and know the person, like if I know that that yoga is your thing, or taking a walk is your thing, or whatever your thing is, it doesn't have to be we're just going to sit here and talk and get all crazy deep, and I'm going to be rushy and not really into it, so you're going to just be whatever, get to know just read the room.
Yeah.
Read the room. Taking a walk outside is golden, like it, because then you're walking and you're out there and it seems like a more casual environment, and you're starting to loosen up maybe a little bit, and it's not always like a boom thing. Like, I was extremely, my mental health was off the hook, triggered through all of this stuff, and I bawled my eyes off like uncontrollably before I could get on here, just bawled. And like, I just think more knowledge about how to maybe how to soothe yourself down a little bit, like, I don't know, just breathing it out with I'm learning to do what you do with like the calming, stuff like that, and that helps me. And just I think just reassuring people when they're going through the truths and the way they're feeling is that they're safe, because it feels good. Like with my nephew, it felt good for me to tell him, I got you. You're safe. I'm not going to take you anywhere that's going to harm you. Just that's what works for me.
Yeah.
It's just,
So there's an active part for us too, and that we might actually get in our own way, so that there's some things that we can do to prepare ourselves better, to be able to tell our truths.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that.
When I was I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I just wanted to say too, if you're wanting, like, if you don't have a lot of people in your life and you don't feel like you have a lot of people that you can tell your truth to or whatever, that one thing that I learned is there's Native American talking circle meetings. And what you do is there's no topic, you can say whatever you want, and as long as you're holding the eagle feather, nobody else speaks at all. And so and then they smudge you out of there, and I'm just saying that there's a lot going on with that is a safe spot, to say what's on your mind that's non-judgmental. I'm saying that just for people out there that might not know that is available, to tell your truth and to feel good about it, and just getting it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. So when I was doing my old consulting work, I used to try to set up a group to be prepared to deal with conflict, anger, upset, maybe trauma coming out. And like into say, basically, how does this group want to kind of live together through that, right? Like, how do we want to be with each other so that we're just prepared, we know what to do, and that's an awesome tool or process. It's like, okay, you can be in a place like, okay, so this shit's coming up, I'm not sure what's going on, seems like it's time for us to
Right, like for
go into
instance, when
conflict
you're
circle. Yeah.
right, when you're going to like treatment for drug and alcohol, in order for you to complete that program, you have to do a relapse prevention plan, which means you have to write it all out. And I just think it should be available to have a trauma prevention plan, or
Trauma
a,
response plan.
a response plan. Yeah.
Mhm.
Just handing it out like the relapse prevention plan, because it's a thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
A lot of people suffering I hear all the reports for the United States. I am sure it goes well beyond. There are a lot of people suffering, and it feels like more and more all the time. So yeah, the more places we can have ready to for with trauma response, that would be awesome.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Peter, you were gonna say something a couple moments ago.
Oh, my brain drifted away on me, but I you know, I used to think in really big kind of, oh, what would the world, what can I do, with my town or my city? Well, I've learned over the last couple of years now, that I've been kind of working on digging into myself a lot, that I really just had to start with me. I was so afraid to, like, my son and I haven't had the closest relationship over most of his life. There's a lot of it that goes into that, but actually now we talk to each other all the time. Well, not all the time, but you know what I mean, quite frequently. I try to get together with him for lunch at least once a week. But even in those moments where I'm like, all I want to do is text you and say I miss you. Like, I used to be so afraid to do that, because I thought, oh, he's just going to say, he's going to laugh at me or do whatever. But now I just kind of go for it. I just do, like, okay, fine. I miss you,
Right.
I'm working on some other stuff with him, but for now, I don't know, we went to lunch the other day, and we just sat and just couldn't stop talking. You know what I mean? It's been really precious. But as far as getting that stuff out, like, your toes are curled, you can kind of feel your body, your back might ache, and you're like, oh, I just want to get this out. I want to say I'm a little scared today, or I don't know. Um, we've, like, Karen and I have gone through some strategies too, even where I text her, and if I'm not feeling it that day or whatever, sometimes I'll be like, how's it going today? And we haven't done it for a while, but we kind of decided on a numbering system, kind of 1 out of 10. So even if I just texted her a 2, she knew it was a real shit day. I mean, like, he's coming in hot, and he's going to be real busted up when he gets home. But at least in that way, I've got kind of some shorthand for, like, hey, today just ain't going the way I wanted it to go at all. But any of those little things, I mean, that she runs through with people all the time. But it would be a really great thing if you could just, I don't even have it on your phone, just a cheat sheet of, like, hey, where am I at right now? What's going on with me? Whoa, pump the brakes.
Yeah.
Take a minute. stop,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe that's all that it needs. Maybe that's all you require is just a 5-minute stop. Just forget about it. And then, maybe you can think of more, I don't know, groundbreaking or fantastic things after that. But really, for me, I just keep things as simple as I possibly can. And after that, I'm like, okay, you're just going to have to be brave enough to say when you're sad or when you're feeling lonely or, hey, I'm not included in this. And I really want to be, because that's super, super important to me. I don't feel like I'm being chipped in here, guys. What's going on? Um, so yeah. And the only other thing that I wrote down is be patient, because I'm sure that we've all got a list that's as long as our arms of the things we would like to change or the things we'd like to address or the stuff we can get out or whatever, but they're not all going to come out tomorrow. I mean, I don't know how many times I've had to remind myself, like, it's not all going to get fixed today, guy. It's just not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So be patient, give yourself some grace, cut yourself
Yeah.
some slack, and just, I don't know, try to pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
Start there.
I love it. And I would just add whatever we can to do that for others too. Right. I know I'm grateful when people give me a little bit of grace and a little space to work out the kinks. Because guess what? I love that numbering system that you're using, Pete, because
Yep.
when I'm bent on something, the words aren't coming there. Maybe my mind is going to, or maybe it's just blank and I'm just a ball of whatever emotions are there. It's it's not going to come out beautifully, and it's probably not going to come out right. Maybe I'm not able to even get to my truths until I've spattered around a little bit for and so yeah, that space that we can give to each other, give to ourselves, and to each other. um
Yeah.
love
I'm
We
it.
all
so glad.
have, a lot of people have, like, bug out plans if, like, they have a natural disaster or they have what happens in case of a fire. Well, what happens when you're having the crappiest day you've had in a while? What do you do? So, like, in those things where if I texted Karen right now, or somebody that loves me, if I sent her a 1 right now, she'd come running in here.
Mm.
And it's just a simple, easy thing to do.
Love it.
Yeah.
Doesn't
I
always
like
work
that.
for everybody or every time or everything, but yeah, in those, I know you and I are a lot alike, Megan, and our old Viking ancestors back there are screaming and want to burn the place to the ground, but we got to tell them, okay, guys, knock it off, take it easy, get some help, reach out.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I'm actually going to repeat that particular tool, as well as the talking circle tool ideas on
heck yeah.
Facebook, and I have a number of others written down that I'm also going to share there. I suggest we come down to some final thoughts here. And Noblelee, I know you had something right there on the tip of your tongue. So do you want to do a final thought before we?
Yeah, I think my final thought would be like, I'm glad that you said what you just said. That was like my sentiments exactly. Like, on the giving yourself grace and other people giving you grace, because when you have told your truth and it made you feel icky, or you're so worked up about not being able to tell your truth that your mental health is all bad. We're all, just trying to survive, and that you totally matter. And if all you can do is like go from your bed to the bathroom, it's okay. Like, you have to uh, let yourself be, and other people need to let you be, because sometimes it might look like a white piece of paper taped to your door, not available. I'm not available, and it's okay. You don't have to try to like appease everybody when you're trying to survive. You do what you need to do. And sometimes if it's not talking right then and there, that too is okay. It's just really important, because for myself, this is all, and then as an end result, it'll be a big blow up. So I guess what I'm just saying is it's everybody's surviving looks different, and it's okay. It's I just you matter, and it's okay. That's all. That's how I got to end it. Like, it's okay. You're okay.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Noblelee. Pete, final thoughts?
Well, it's very nice to meet you, Noblelee. And I came up with a new nickname for you. And it's a good one. And it's a good one. And in my head, I've already named you Crooked Tree. So
Oh yes, yes. I was thinking, like, I don't know, another time we can maybe all three get on Zoom and
Sure.
talk and get some information. I'm a little bit maxed out tonight, honestly,
Sure.
but I would love to get some
Yeah.
information for you, and it's very nice to meet you too.
Great.
Very
Nice.
nice.
Well, and
I will
I'm
happy to coordinate that, by the way.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
and you have my number too, so you can always text us too, so it's no big deal.
Yeah.
I guess my final thing is I'm proud of both of you. And I'm proud of my sister for the woman that she is. I love
Great
you
woman.
very, very much. I don't have a lot of people in my life that I actually trust implicitly, and you're one of a couple. So I hold you in, I don't know, I'm just super proud of you. I talk about you a lot, and I'm so glad that, I don't know, I'm blessed with having a family that can family me up as much as you can. And on the topic a little bit, I don't know, just cut yourself some slack. They'll come out. You say it, it'll come out. If it's not the right day, it won't. And that's fine. I mean, Nobly, when you said you're okay, I thought you were talking to me.
I was.
I mean, directly to me, like,
Oh,
ooh,
okay.
man, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I hear you there, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you ladies. I think this is awesome. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pete.
He made me cry too. I'm not even his sister.
Well, you are now.
Do you want another sister? I was gonna say it.
Yep. Yep. I'll take you.
Your family to me, Noblelee. So that's
It's good enough for me.
So you're in, and I love you to pieces, Peter. And
I love you too, honey.
Extremely proud of you too, and feel blessed. I've always felt blessed to have had you in my life. There we go.
Yeah.
My internet has really sucked tonight. I don't know if everybody's noticed, but sorry about that. So I'm not going to belabor this, except to say I really agree with what you both said, and I really hope little by little we are able to move the needle to create more space for us to really truly be able to show up as ourselves as we need. And I don't think it has to be the fear that people, I'm not quite sure. I have guesses about what the fears are that people have about opening up spaces for people to tell their truths and to but I really believe we are all better for it when we do, and healing speeds up. We have healthier, happier spaces in the long run when we create spaces for the tough stuff. That's just what I believe. And honestly, I don't even think the long run is that long when we don't have to fight to be heard and to be seen and to be cared for. So
beautiful. Yes.
So that said, next time, 2 weeks from tonight, we will be joined by another amazing human. His name is Paz Ryant. He is the executive director of the Apprentice of Peace Youth Organization, which operates in the Denver metro area, working with young people on a variety of things, helping to be whole people. And that includes addressing and supporting them through mental health challenges. I could go on and on about how amazing Paz and the organization are, but we'll find out more next week when we are talking about when trauma shows up in relation with others. So when we're out there in the world and trauma shows up, what that looks like and how challenging that is and what we can do to help move through that. So that brings us to our final our medicine to close us out with a joke, and we'll send us off with our water. But Noblelee, do you want to do your joke or do you want to pass the baton?
I do want to pass the baton. I do want to.
Okay. All right.
Okay, here we go.
Well, this is in the fine tradition, and this is an actual dad joke because this is my father's joke that he how many years did he teach? 35. I mean, he's been teaching for a million years, but he used to tell this joke all the time. And now when I tell the guys and tell my family, all I have to do to get them to groan really bad is to say, you guys know how to catch a polar bear? And every single one of them goes, oh no. So here's the cool thing. If you want to catch a polar bear, what you need is a couple of things. You need an ice axe, and you need a can of peas, and something to open the can with, whatever. It's easy enough. Or get one of the pop top ones, whatever. Then you got to go where the polar bears live, right? Just watch out for the polar bears because they'll want to eat you. So be careful. Go out there with your ice axe, out to the ice where they live. Cut yourself a hole in the ice, all right? Pop open that can of peas and then line the hole with the peas. And go hide because the polar bears are going to want to eat you. And then when the polar bear comes up to take a pee, you run up behind him and kick him in the ice hole.
Oh my gosh.
Not terrible.
Oh, and with that, cheers to y'all. Peter, I didn't tell you about it, but this is the drinking our life, our healing here.
Sweet.
Yes.
Got a little Gatorade.
Water, the first medicine. All right, I love you both.
Love you. Thank you.
Take good care. We will be in touch. I love you.
Yeah.
Love you too.
Okay.
Bye. Bye, Peter.
Bye.